The April 3rd, 2025 Des Moines City Council Committee of the Whole is now called to order. The Committee of the Whole is the council's opportunity to hear briefings from staff on a variety of items and emerging issues. This is a time for council education, and it's an opportunity to offer input and direction to staff. Though the public is invited to attend, it's not a time for public interaction. No formal council action will be expected during this meeting. So please note that right now 5 council members are in attendance, and I would entertain a motion to excuse one or both of the 2 council members who I believe are en route.
So
Okay, Councilmember Mahoney. Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? A second from Councilmember Oxiger. All in favor, raise your right hand. Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, and myself all opposed. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Nutting and Councilmember Steinmetz are excused. Okay, so the first item up on in our meeting tonight is the subject of alarm systems and false alarm updates, and we will be hearing from City Attorney Tim George.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tim George, City Attorney. So last month at the Committee of the Whole meeting, you heard from the police chief about the option to contract out our alarm monitoring and registration process. The committee greenlit that idea. The next step is for the city to update our ordinance. The last time our ordinance was updated was in 2006, so it's a bit out of date. And really, we're coming to you tonight for 2 policy questions. And I'll just start with number 1, and that is when we bring this back, we would like to have a recommended alarm registration fee. And so in the packet, we provided a kind of a snapshot of what our neighboring jurisdictions charge. And I'll show you just up on the board that we're currently at $25 a year for the registration. And based on what we looked at, that's really kind of the high mark. Even though that's something from 2006, it looks like 25 is the high mark, and that some cities don't actually even charge a registration fee. So our recommendation for question number 1 is just to leave it at $25.
That's your, so that you want that question answered right now. Okay, any input on that? Is there, I'll just say, all in favor of leaving it at $25? Raise your right hand. Well, we have to do, are you taking a vote? You want a motion?
I think consensus, I mean, we're still gonna bring this back for the council to actually vote on.
You're just looking for a head nod for bringing back. Looks like you have strong favor, unless you, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for doing the jurisdictional review to give us an idea of what other cities are doing. I do notice that 25 does seem to be the standard, but many of these cities also have not updated this code in quite some time. The most recent one being Tequila in 2021. So I think even though we would be ahead of other cities, they might catch up with us if they see ours go up. But I'm fine with $25 if registration, if everyone else is as well. Thank you.
Let the record show that Deputy Mayor Steinmetz has joined the meeting. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Mahoney.
So, I think $25 is fine. The catch is here is it seems to be there's a lot of people in the community that don't register. And I guess it's for maybe the chief here, he just pulled into the back. If they don't, obviously, if they're not registered, you show up. What's the effort to get them to register and so forth? Is that the contact with the officers? Can you kind of take me through that? I saw you sitting in the back, and I couldn't let you be that relaxed.
Sorry. Yeah, so if somebody is currently not registered, the fee structure changes when we have a false alarm at a non-registered house. They get a fine issued if it's a non-registered house. And if we looked last year, I don't have the numbers in front of me that I was using last time, but I think we actually had more non-registered false alarm than we had registered, which is the importance of getting them registered, is it actually increases the compliance with maintenance of your system. to follow up on our previous discussion, that's really why we're going to a specialized contractor who does this work and knows how to do this work at a really high level, is to try to actually get increased compliance with registration and decreased officer response for false alarm.
Councilmember Harris.
So, let's say you're not registered. Is there any mechanical or electronic difference in terms of the alarm company? I mean, and the other thing is just, say they are not registered. I'm assuming that we automatically tack on $25, or is there, in other words, do they have the option to pay the fine and still not get registered?
I don't know the answer to the question. There's a legal component to this as far as the statute and the requirement to register your alarm, so it is a violation not to be registered. As far as the, this is going to fall to a lot of things. People who maintain their stuff and keep their records and keep their stuff registered tend to maintain their stuff better, which means that we likely have a lower instance of violations. It also really is helpful to us because often we have contact cards, we have good information, people are keeping their systems up to date, which is helpful for us being able to actually prevent the response because the alarm system or the alarm companies have all the contacts and things are being kept up to date. That my understanding is that's probably more on the alarm relationship between the alarm company, but I'm not an expert in alarms. I don't work in that industry. And again, this is really why we're trying to go to an expert, is that we actually bring in subject matter expert to do the work instead of somebody like me who has an alarm on my house, but I'm not an alarm expert.
I don't want to drag this out. It just occurred to me that, you know, there should be some kind of default checkbox that says that, you know, we're fining you for this thing. Oh, and by the way, we're
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's part of the, and that's not necessarily part of this conversation, but with the professional management is when they're notified that this home has an alarm, then they'll put them in the system and they'll begin sending them annual bills. And if they don't get paid, then they can tack on the late fees and do that kind of thing. So having the professional management allows us to really kind of focus on who has an alarm and make sure that they're registered. Okay, great. That was the first question. The second.
So that was my next, is the second question going to be on the other fee structure?
Yes.
Set of fee, okay.
Yeah, so I'll introduce that real quick. The second question, and we just need to plug this in when we bring the ordinance back to the council, is the false alarm fees. And so our code was very forgiving. It allowed for 2 false alarms without any sort of penalty. And of course, depending on the types of those alarms, they require multiple officers, take them away from their other duties, essentially for a non-emergency. And so we reviewed other cities. We also kind of took the model of what is this going to cost us? And so can we recover some of those costs? Because again, this is not an emergency. It's essentially an accident or someone not monitoring their home correctly or responding to these alarms and turning them off before we get called. So our existing code had 1 and 2, first 2 responses, no penalty. Third was $100 and fourth was $200. If you see in the red there is what we're proposing. And that would be 1 false alarm in the 12-month period would have no penalty. It would just be a warning. And then that point we start stair-stepping up from that. And not only are we increasing the penalties, but we're also looking at what type of alarm and what kind of response are we doing, because certain alarms you can press a button on your alarm indicating you're essentially in a hostage situation. You can enter a false code into the alarm and it calls the police and says, you know, there's someone essentially being held hostage at this home. And we're going to respond to that a lot differently than if we just have, hey, there's an open window at this house. And so we've coded that in a different way to essentially attempt to recover our actual costs while also keeping it in line with generally in line with what our other jurisdictions are doing. So the red is the proposed, and we're definitely interested in the council's position on that, and if we should make any changes before we bring it back to the council. And again, we can still change it when we bring it back. It's just, these will be the numbers that we'll plug in into our draft.
Okay, any questions? Councilmember Harris.
The only question I have for the chief is, and, you know, since nobody else considers this, but is there any qualitative difference in the police response based on a commercial versus a home alarm? And, you know, since nobody else puts it in their fees, I'm assuming the answer is maybe no, but just.
I don't think there's qualitative. Every alarm is a risk management discussion as far as looking at what we're going to. So a bank alarm or a school alarm, a panic alarm in a school gets a completely different response than, not completely different, but we're gonna have a different risk assessment versus a panic alarm that maybe is at a place that we've gone to 17 times, that we have a little bit, you know, a new employee at the, you know, McDonald's has pushed a button several times, and we may have a little bit of a different response from that, like, risk assessment. But at the end of the day, a panic alarm is treated with a fairly standard protocol of somebody is in distress and needs help. A basic burglar alarm is treated at a lower level, and then once we get there, it can escalate. So you get to your basic burglar alarm, everything looks fine, then you find an open door. Now you have to have a couple other officers come because now we have to do a building search, and building search brings up a different risk component. So it's really hard to say that, like, there's one automated standard response. Typically speaking, a business alarm is going to get treated very similar to a residential alarm, in that we're going to assess what the needs are and then escalate or de-escalate based on what the needs are once, or what the observations are of the officers once they get there.
Okay, and, you know, thank you, the spreadsheet, that's the most colorful spreadsheet, that thing I've ever seen in my life. Thank you so much.
Any other questions on the schedule there? I do. So 3 cities look like they have a non-registration fee there: Auburn, Issaquah, and Renton, and we don't. And I guess I'm interested in the council's feeling on, should we charge people if they have not registered? If they get one, this is my kind of tentative opinion, if they get one free, and then they get a second call and they still haven't registered? Oh, go ahead.
So we do have for a non-registered alarm, there's a $200 fine in our code. It's not up there,
Okay,
but that's what's currently in our code.
okay. And so even if they're not charged for a false alarm, they get the first one free, they still would, would they get charged the non-registration fee if they weren't registered?
It would be officer discretion, but yes, they could be.
So discretion on that. All right. Well, I'm pretty satisfied with that policy, so I wouldn't recommend anything. And Councilmember Oxker.
Can I digress back to the registration?
Sure.
Okay. Why would we not treat the registration as part of, for example, a fee that we charge for a cable? I mean, we have a franchise for the cable. We do not franchise for alarm companies.
That's correct.
Okay, is there anything that would prevent us from franchising alarms?
Well, a franchise is the right to use the city right of way. So alarm companies are not doing that.
Okay. Is there any way, though, that we could put the registration fee back on the company and they just include it into their bill?
So that's one of the things that we'll talk to the administrator about, our third party that we're contracting with, and that's one of their specialties is they work with all these alarm companies, so they're able to access their customer list, and we can talk to them about if alarm companies even allow that. But at least we can know they'll be able to figure out who has alarms with these companies, and they'll be able to send out the notices, which is something that generally we haven't had the capacity to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, you feel like you got the direction you needed?
Yes, thank you. So we'll be putting this together and bringing it to council probably later this month or next.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, the subject of middle housing, and we're going to receive a briefing from Planning and Development Services Manager Laura Chico and Community Development Director Rebecca.
Yes. Thank you. So, over the past year and then some, staff have been working on several housing bills and preparing code amendments to comply with them. And one of those is House Bill 1110 related to middle housing. And so tonight's packet contains a draft ordinance, and we've got three main topics that we're looking for feedback on. So what is middle housing? Middle housing refers to housing types that fall between detached single-family homes and larger apartment buildings. And this offers a mix of housing options within a neighborhood. They include 9 different housing types that include duplexes, townhomes, and cottage housing. And the targeted zones for middle housing traditionally are those areas traditionally identified for detached single-family homes and lower density multifamily zones. So depending on the location, between 2 and 6 dwelling units per lot under this bill would be permitted, and that can depend on proximity to major transit, and major transit is things like rapid ride and light rail, kind of larger, higher speed transit, and or whether there's affordable housing units that are included in those. So cities need to adopt their new codes by June 30th of this year. And if we don't, then the state's model ordinance will take effect until such time as cities do or do not adopt their own regulations. So some things that are often confused with middle housing, what are not middle housing, things like tiny homes, accessory dwelling units, and mobile homes. The 9 housing types that are considered middle housing are specifically defined in the House bill. And while these other options provide additional housing options for lower incomes, they would not be included in these code changes. And although last time during the Committee of the Whole, we discussed the potential for ADUs to be counted into kind of a total unit maximum count. So there were 3 primary areas that staff are looking for feedback on tonight, and we'll go into a little more detail on these later. These include maximum unit density, such as how many dwelling units could be built on each lot, unit sizes for different types of housing, and parking requirements. And then there's a few sections later in the model ordinance that staff are still working with other divisions, in particular the building and transportation divisions, to make sure that the language in the draft ordinance is consistent with our building and fire codes and our street standards. So over this last year or so, staff have worked with our consultant AHBL to do public outreach, to engage citizens and stakeholders such as utilities. And outreach methods have included setting up a dedicated web page, updates on social media and city currents, a booth at the farmers market, and then in January we had a 2-part public meeting. The first part was stakeholders such as utilities, school districts, developers, and then the second half with the public. So in terms of, the cities are required to select at least 6 of the 9 described middle housing types. And so the 6 that we have discussed previously with council and with the public that were determined to be the most feasible are duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, stacked flats, which are dwelling units that are one on top of each other, cottage housing, which are small-scale dwellings clustered around a common community open space, and townhouses, which are side-by-side units typically separated by a property line. The 3 that were not selected are 5-plexes, 6-plexes, and courtyard apartments. Courtyard apartments are medium-density multifamily buildings that are oriented around a shared open courtyard. And these were mostly excluded just because they typically contain higher densities than what would be allowed in the majority of the lots that are affected in Des Moines. So as I mentioned earlier, middle housing requirements apply to single-family zones, and those have been kind of aggregated and are shown in dark blue on this map. Lower density multifamily zones such as RM 2400 and RA 3600, which is a townhouse zone, and those are in oranges and pinks, which are looking awfully tan on that map. And then higher density multifamily zones such as RM 1800 and 900 were excluded because they already meet the minimum densities and they already allow for many of the housing types that are included in middle housing. And then we have some larger lot zones, suburban estates and suburban residential, which are in green. Many of those contain critical areas and parks. So we've got Saltwater State Park and Beach Park are showing up on that map in green. So there's been a lot of confusion over the differences between middle housing and accessory dwelling units and the overlapping requirements of those respective bills. So they're both strategies to increase housing options, but they do typically differ in scale and use. Middle housing types typically bridge the gap between single family and high density multifamily. Accessory dwelling units are smaller in scale. They've historically been a size-restricted accessory use on a single-family lot and often used for family members or as rentals. In the requirements of the House Bill 1337, which refers to ADUs, they have lesser parking requirements, in some cases reduced setbacks, and they would only pay a percentage of traffic and other impact fees that would typically be applied to a single-family residence. And under that House bill, at least 2 accessory dwelling units, either attached or detached, must be permitted on residential lots. So Des Moines is defined as a Tier 2 city under the middle housing regulations, that being a city with a population between 25,000 and 75,000. So cities of this size must allow for the development of at least 2 units per lot on all of the residential lots that were identified, development of at least 4 units per lot for lots that are within 1/4 mile walking distance of major transit, and the development of at least 4 units on a lot where at least 1 unit is affordable housing. So the first area that we're looking for policy direction on referred to the number of dwelling units allowed on the lot as a whole for single-family, middle housing, and ADUs. Now, as I mentioned, middle housing bill requires a minimum of 2, the potential for 4. The ADU bill requires that at least 2 ADUs be allowed on each lot. And at the last Committee of the Whole meeting, there was a recommendation to count ADUs in that maximum number of units that were allowed on the lot. There is a number of ways to develop a lot, either vacant or redevelopment, and those may not always be able to be done equitably. If you have a single-family home, you could do 2 ADUs, that's 3 dwelling units. If you do 2 units of middle housing and you still get 2 accessory dwelling units, that would be 4 units. And so one approach to this that some other cities have done is just allowing 4 units of any of those types maximum on a lot. And then I know Rebecca had a conversation earlier with the city of Kent, who has kind of developed a different approach. I don't know if you want to describe
Correct.
that.
So one of the discussions that was had per ADUs was the scaling idea, where you would scale up based on size. What they came up with is, instead of having a chart or per square footage, they came up with a similar, like the 4 units per lot. They gave an equivalent dwelling units per acre. So it was 4 units per lot is the minimum, or at our normal lot size at 7,200 square feet as our minimum lot size, instead of requiring subdivisions, that equals 24 units per acre. So you would say you could either have at a minimum 4 units per lot or 24 units per acre. So the bigger the lot you have, it's the equivalent to 4 units per lot at a 7,200 unit subdivision, but you wouldn't have to subdivide and you'd get the same number of units. So instead of trying to say for every 1 unit for every 3,000 square feet, or 1 unit for, you know, as an equivalent of 1 unit for, you just say 24 units per acre, with a 4 unit per lot minimum, as an example. So that was one way to go about that, wording it that way and making it easier if you have larger lots to get more units if the council wanted to go that direction.
Is it good to, now would be time for feedback?
Sure, there's a couple picture slides that might be
Wanna do that
easier to
first before you take
discuss,
questions?
Yeah.
to talk
it-
around.
Yeah, because it kind of talks about how we can fit the different pieces in.
So this next series is kind of a progression of how a simplified neighborhood might develop over time with the ADU and the middle housing bills. And these,
Just a second.
Yeah.
So, good break, just to acknowledge that Councilmember Nutting joined us, and the clerk already took care of it. Okay, go ahead.
so these were developed by one of our planners, Alicia Jacobs, so shout out to her. So here is kind of a standard single-family neighborhood. The white are single-family residences. Here it is a few years later. 2 of the homes have added attached ADUs. One has added a detached, it's kind of purple, ADU. Further down the road here, 2 single-family homes were removed and middle housing types were added in there. So on the far left, there's two townhomes, and far right are 2 cottage housing. And then in a scenario where we're just going with areas within transit buffers or areas with adding in an affordable housing unit, the bonus units here are in yellow. So if there's an affordable housing unit, the blue townhomes could add 2 additional units. And then say the cottage housing over on the right was within a transit buffer and walkable, they were able to add 2 additional units there too. And then just for bringing it a little more local, here's an aerial view of another, actually of Des Moines itself, and some lots that have either added ADUs or middle housing, or the blue shaded area on the right is an area within walking distance to transit, so they were able to get a couple additional units. But just to kind of picture some development scenarios, this is a nice slide to talk around.
Okay. Do you have another slide, or would you like feedback now?
I think this is a good stopping point to talk about, yeah, how many units to allow per lot, how to calculate that, adding in ADUs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions? Councilmember Nutting, then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and then Councilmember Oxiger.
Thank you, Mayor. I do apologize for being late to the game here. Work prevailed this day, so if I missed it, I apologize too. So the first question is what's the lot size? I heard 7,500 for the lot size to start adding ADUs. So anything under 7,500 would not be allowed to add ADUs,
So under the current state law, we have to allow 2 ADUs per lot, no matter what.
no matter what
Correct.
lot size. Okay. And then there would be an exception for setbacks. And what would we have to follow for that?
There's a couple situations in the ADU bill that's for that if it's an accessory dwelling unit adjacent to, I think it says an alley that's typically plowed, so a developed alley, they can be closer to. And there's a provision in there, if you're converting, say, an existing detached garage to an ADU that doesn't meet setbacks, we still need to allow them to convert that. So it's not necessarily
So it's
the
not
new.
necessarily everyone has the ability to build a new ADU because they're already fully built out, but that doesn't mean someone couldn't convert existing space within their house to an ADU. So just because we have to allow everyone 2 ADUs per lot doesn't mean everyone has the ability to add additional square footage within the lot they already have. So we don't have to give them exemptions to existing setbacks that we already have. The only, as was mentioned, the only setback that the state requires us to give them is the alley access with a 0 setback. So we still keep our existing setbacks. So if there's space, then they can build an additional ADU with additional square footage. Otherwise, someone would possibly be looking at converting a garage to a ADU, for
So you can
instance.
convert a garage, but if the front yard setback is 20 feet and the backyard setback is 40 feet from the fence, then you couldn't build an additional ADU, but you can convert the garage.
That's correct.
Okay. The second question is, well, third, sorry, it's been a long day. A lot of whack code looking at. They would have to abide by all building codes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the last question is you were talking about per acre. What is the advantage to that or disadvantage to that?
The advantage is making it simpler for people to understand if the council, as was discussing at the last meeting, wanting a scalable approach that allows more units for larger acreage. The advantage is for allowing an easier way for people to develop their property, to develop it cheaper and faster than having to subdivide. By allowing them to, what for the normal person looking on the street, it possibly looks like the same development, but it's cheaper for them to develop because they don't have to go through the subdivision process, because we just allow them to develop more units on a single lot, and then they can still condominiumize it or unit lot subdivide it when that code goes through without having to actually go through a regular subdivision. So that's the difference. It's a cost-saving measure.
And then, finally, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what about the impact fees? When you take a lot of our roads here in Des Moines are very narrow, and then you start taking all of these properties and developing them and putting more family units on there or single person units on there, and you go from 1 car per house or 2 car per house to maybe 5 cars per house, and there's 20 houses that do that within 2 or 3 blocks. What about impact fees there?
So there's no restriction on impact fees through middle housing, so they would pay the regular impact fee that we have for a per unit impact fee. There is a restriction under state law for accessory dwelling units. So the council could limit under the state law how many accessory dwelling units someone could build per lot and therefore try and get people to build cottage housing. It's a more similar size instead of accessory dwelling units on, so if someone had an acre, instead of saying, hey, I want to build 10 accessory dwelling units, no, those should be cottage housing then it can be designed like cottage housing instead of 10 accessory dwellings. And then we wouldn't have the same concerns. We'd be getting the impact fees and other, for other reasons. But there's no restriction on middle housing. They'd be paying full impact fees if the council wanted to collect full impact fees. There's no restrictions on that.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm done for right now, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Hi, thank you. This is a great presentation because it's generating all kinds of thoughts in my head. And, the one thing, my impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is Des Moines has a lot of different sized lots. We really don't have a standard. Have we done any kind of analysis on, you talked about the 7,200 square foot lots? Oh, you have some.
Yes. So within a residential single-family zone, we have approximately, we have 3,696 lots between 7,200 and 10,000 square feet. And then we have 2,392 lots over 10,000 square feet. And that's out of a total of just under 8,000 lots.
Okay. That's, Yeah, I mean, that's a huge variance.
Yes,
And I understand one of the issues in the state law is they just say lot, and they didn't define it.
correct.
So it's up to us to try to figure out what lot means for Des Moines.
So our different, yeah, so our different zones that we currently have, you know, they're RS 7200, those numbers are our current minimum lot sizes. So RS 7200 means that if you were to subdivide it, that minimum lot size is 7,200. We have different, you know, different sizes. RS 4000 means that that's a 4,000 square foot minimum lot. So different zones have different minimum lot sizes.
Okay, and if we were to do, are there single-family lots that were built before we put in the 72 and maybe are smaller, and would they be entitled to then put 4 units?
Yes, we do have substandard lots, and they are entitled to put the same number of lots.
All right.
Assuming they could fit it, they still have to meet setbacks, and they still have to, but
Right.
that doesn't mean that, yeah, so they don't usually they can't, because they can't fit it, but that doesn't mean they don't have a right under the code to still build it if they can fit it.
And then the other issue with the setbacks is you have the irregularly shaped lots,
Again.
which are gonna be a restriction.
Yes, and same with if they've got critical areas or flood, so there's lots of reasons there's other reasons that sometimes people can't build to their full potential.
And from a,
Go ahead, I think she has a comment.
I mean, from a development point of view, is the approach from Kent more appealing because you can kind of figure out what you can fit on that individual lot than just a flat, you have a lot, you can only do 4? Is that the advantage of it, or is that a disadvantage to it?
It was more appealing than thinking about putting a chart together or every 3,000 square foot you could do this, you know, because I started to think of, okay, what's the chart? Is it, you know, when I first started thinking, I was like, okay, under 10,000 you get 4 units, and then 10,000 to 13 you get 5, and then 13 and up you get 6. I was coming up with random numbers based on our conversation, and then when I started to think, and then I was hearing them talk and hearing their presentation, and they came up with this 24 units, and I started doing the math of how they came up with 24 units per acre, and I thought, well, that's 4 units, you know, 4 units per lot at our 7,200 minimum, and so if you just do that math, you get the same scaling effect without having to do a chart. It's fair no matter what size lot you have, because you can just do a standard density calculation, whether you're at 8,000 or 9,000 or 9,500, you can do the math, and it's equitable. So that's the only, it came across to me as equitable, instead of, you know, one bracket for a certain size that I had to come up randomly. So I thought it was more equitable. That's why I liked it.
Is it also a little easier for city planning purposes?
I think it's easier to write in code and easier for people to understand. Most developers, most people understand. The whole idea of units per lot that the legislative came up with was a whole new thing. Planners have always dealt with a standard density of units per acre. So having a new thing that's a units per lot is a brand new thing we've never dealt with before in this profession. It's always been a units per acre. And so it's just something that's always been more understood.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Councilmember Oxiger, I think, and then Councilmember Harris, and I think the city manager has a comment or some input.
Well, I was just going to say, when Deputy Mayor Steinmetz was sort of, and I think Councilmember Nutting was also doing this, kind of going through, gosh, how dense are these neighborhoods going to get? When staff and I were going through this earlier this week, that's why I asked them to sort of create or kind of build upon these models they've created. So thank you to Alicia for doing this. She made these, which I don't know how, but she did. But if you'll go to the one, Laura, that has the actual aerial of our community. So it's hard to tell, right? Because everything just sort of looks like Legos. But I think the takeaway should be what I think will prevent maybe the concern that these single-family neighborhoods will become unrecognizably dense is the sheer geometry of these lots. And so some of this will sort of take care of itself, even though, yes, you know, technically they can do 4 and things like that, but you hear Rebecca saying, well, if they can meet the setbacks, if it can fit. So, I think that's what sort of the goal of some of these visuals were.
Thank you.
That's good. Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, thank you. Under your proposed recommendation regarding the quarter-mile walking distance with of major transit, what is your definition of major transit? Are we talking about sound transit or the light rail, or do we also include the rapid ride?
So that's specifically defined by Commerce, and it is the scale of rapid ride and light rail. So it's not going to trickle down to the neighborhood routes that go through. So it's really Pack Highway and the Federal Way Link Extension.
So if we developed a system that was serving the rapid ride and or light rail, that would not be included. In other words, we can't adjust the size of the territory.
Currently, we're proposing 4 units across the board, which is the same as in the transit area. So it wouldn't matter, those maps wouldn't matter currently, is what we've been just discussing at 4 units per lot. Right, if we went with the state minimum, it would be 2 units per lot and 4 near transit.
Okay.
So those maps, that's one of the reasons we've been talking about 4 across the board, because then those don't matter, where there's bus, where there's not, it's equal across the board. So if you want to keep them separate, then we can pull up maps and show you exactly where those specific bubbles are. But it sounded like from the accessory dwelling unit conversations, council was pushing more towards more units, so that's why we came back a little bit different and just proposing 4 units across the board.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Harris, and then Councilmember Grace Mudd.
Well, first of all, this is hands down the best presentation of its type since I've been attending, and that's 2008. Not kidding.
Thank you.
Whoever, employee of the month, I'm not.
Please.
But because I rarely give 100, the only thing I would mention was Councilmember Oxiger's thing, because it seems to me that you do recommend 4 units, regardless of the thing. And so I would just say that the last sentence should have been in red and the others should have been, and so you get a 99. And other than that, and I'm probably just borrowing trouble, but I just due diligence because we're going to talk about the parking thing. The only possible fly in the ointment is, can the city foresee over the next couple of years any kind of state intervention to insist upon affordable units? I mean, is there anything in the pipe? And again, if there's not, there's not, but it's just, and would that cause any kind of heartburn, ex post facto, or just kind of,
I haven't seen any discussion about forcing inclusionary housing yet. So I don't foresee it anytime soon, so.
Well, and just the Kent thing, double thumbs up. It just sounds like anybody with Google Earth. Because I'm just saying, from my lived experience, we have all these little micro farms. This is it. So well done. That's it.
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I think, what Councilmember Oxiger was saying. So I just want to make sure that I heard the question correctly. So the mass transit definition defined by Commerce only includes rapid ride and light rail extension. So any public transit servicing those lines are not included in the quarter mile.
Correct, they don't have enough.
Those don't count as mass transit options. Correct. So you can have public transportation, the Metro bus running up to the rapid line, but that doesn't extend that quarter mile buffer inclusion zone for that smaller regional transit.
Correct.
Okay.
They don't service fast enough to be included.
Right. Is that what you were asking? Yeah, okay, just wanted to make sure of that. And then I think we're being asked if we could somewhat merge the ADU and middle housing so that they don't have totally separate codes, but there's a balance so that we kind of can fit them together, and that's what you're really looking for. Can we take the regulations that are being proposed here and we're being asked to comply with and make it a little bit easier by sort of folding them into one set of codes? And we could do it by, let's say there's 12 zoning, we could do X number per zone and do a huge chart that says X number per this and this and this and RS this and this and this. Or we could go with, you have an acre divided by 7,200 square feet, which is around the standard that we use, which fits 4, because we said that's a minimum. And that just comes out to 24 because somebody did the math for us. Okay.
That's correct.
So that's what you're looking for the guidance on. Putting the ADU and the middle housing together so that we don't have 2 different sets of regulations about minimum unit?
That's correct.
Okay. I think I've got
And
it.
you can still put a cap on the number of accessory dwelling units within this if you'd
Sure.
like, so that it's not all accessory dwelling units types, because that is what we can do, so that it's more middle housing and not all accessory units within the types of housing allowed.
Right. And so at this moment, are you asking about number and configuration back to
Yes.
this slide, staff
Correct.
recommendation?
Yes, that's what we're
So,
asking.
okay, perfect. Even though the Kent minimum 4 or 24 per acre is not on the slide, it's another possibility.
Correct, that
That is,
happened about
that
2
happened
hours
about
ago.
2 hours ago.
Okay,
That
perfect.
idea came 2
Yeah,
hours ago.
Yeah, and the math, so
Yes.
get it. Okay, excellent, thank you.
So I would like to go to a couple of these questions and see if we can answer them for you before we head to parking. Is that all right?
Yes.
So the first question had to do with the density, and if we all are in favor of the Kent model, does that answer this bullet 1 unit density question?
Yes, so that'd be 4
Okay.
units per lot or 24 units per acre.
Okay, and are we needing a motion of this, or can we do a head nod on this?
And not-
Okay, so, if you like the Kent model, nod your head. Councilmember Harris, are you raising your hand? Yes? Yes? Is there anybody that doesn't like it? Okay, so you got your answer on that. Second bullet is the code provisions for minimum and maximum. Is that the same thing? It says here, it's the second bullet, add code provisions for minimum and maximum unit sizes to reflect the relative scale
No. Oh, sorry.
of different housing types.
I think the second question on here is, you're good with ADUs counting towards that
Right.
count? Okay.
Add, unit size, ADU and cottage housing.
Oh,
So is that,
next question, right,
That's-
there's
yeah.
3
yeah,
questions.
that's the
And
next
that is-
question.
Yeah.
This one, so currently the draft ordinance, so the last committee of the whole meeting, we
Oh, is
talked
this,
about.
just a second,
ADUs.
so now is this a new subject that we haven't
This is a
covered?
new
Yes.
subject.
Okay, then, before we go to there, I do have a couple questions. So,
So I think the next
See,
question that was
one-
kind of configuration that we were talking about, do we want to limit within that 24 units per acre, how many ADUs someone could have?
Rebecca, can you go to that slide so it kind of matches second?
Yeah, go back to the,
so are we moving to the second bullet now?
no, I think I'm still under configurations, because we're
Okay.
still talking about the configurations
All right,
of the,
okay,
of the configuration of how they can compose
24
their, of the
units.
24 units per acre.
that was kind
And
of
the
gonna be my
ADUs.
question about, can you cluster them if you've got, wetlands, slopes? Let's say you have an acre and you wanna put in 24 units, you get 24 units per acre, if you can cluster them.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so,
But I think the question still is do we want to allow them to be all ADUs, as an example? One single-family residence and 10 ADUs, or do we want to limit the amount of ADUs so that we can, cottage housing is usually better designed than random ADUs throughout the lot, if you've got more, so do we want to put a maximum number of ADUs someone could have on a lot?
and the definition of an ADU is size.
Yes.
So, and the break point is, did we say it was 1,200 or 15?
That's the next discussion topic. So,
Okay.
yeah, so the middle housing code says that you need to be at least a maximum of 1,000. Ours was 800. So the discussion last time was, let's go up to 1,200. But then, in terms of scale, you have ADUs, cottage housing, single family. Cottage housing is meant to be somewhere in the middle there, and this ordinance just typically, currently does not have a size range for cottage housing. A lot of other cities tend to kind of overlap, such as, you know, you've got, if we were gonna go 350 to 1,200 for ADUs, maybe cottage housing is kind of 800 to 1,600 or 1,500. So that there's some overlap, but still kind of smaller scale than, you know, having 3,000 square foot single-family homes in there. So that's some of the approaches people have taken.
So, well, like, okay, just a little, I'll ask this question and then open it up. So what I could see is if you limit the ADUs, then even though they could fit, you could get more units on a cluster lot, you wouldn't be able to do it if you limited your ADU size. Do you see what I'm saying? Let's say somebody has an acre and they want to put 24 units on, but it's compromised by critical lands, so they want to cluster the housing, but they can't do that if you say they can only have 2 ADUs. Now they really can only get 5 units on it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. So I think if you limit the ADUs, you may be limiting people's ability to maximize their land. I'm just putting that out there. Okay, questions then on this one. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the definition of a cottage? Is it a single dwelling unit, or like a duplex or a threeplex or a fourplex, or, I mean, what's the definition of a
They're
cottage?
typically detached. I think there are some situations with they're attached, but essentially it's 2 or more smaller units, typically in kind of the 1,000, 1,200 square foot size, with front porches that front onto a common open area. So, you know, you could have just 2 facing that, or you could have a cluster of them, and that's where we kind of get into something a little bigger than ADUs, but you can still have multiple that are clustered in an area to get a little more density.
So like army barracks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll go with Councilmember Harris and then Councilmember Grace Matsui.
So with the cottage thing, there'll be like a common courtyard.
That's correct. That's typically how you define a
And
cottage.
are they organized with like an HOA kind of a thing, or is it self?
So there are common areas, so there's an allowance for 1 common building, so like a little recreational building that fronts onto there. So the far bottom right photo is kind of from the
Yeah,
front
no, it's
porch of a
just,
cottage on a cluster. And, yeah.
Charming. And my, you know, and I keep, you know, harping on simplicity, but I can see someone maximizing ADUs, whereas I think it's probably in the city's interest to encourage cottage housing, some kind of middle path for land that provides a bit more density. And I mean, I'm willing to scrap that notion just for the sake of keeping away from the 72-page table. But that, I don't know if that's a real thing, but I can see somebody, at some point, the city has an interest to provide more opportunities for people to live here in, you know, charming places. And, you know, there has to be some kind of incentive kind of a thing. And I'm just, if you have any thoughts on how that could be done.
So if you can, just for a moment here, so we have just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
So we need to make 2 decisions. One you need to answer, but do we forward this conversation to 1 month from now or into another meeting?
We do have to have this adopted by June 30th, so we need to make some quick direction so we can put something together for the public hearing. We don't have much time to bring this back, or else the state standard will
We can
kick
bring
in.
it back next week.
We can bring it back?
Okay.
Okay, it's gonna be heavy.
Well, the
meeting
protocol
next week.
manual will just sort of get,
Yeah, just push, okay. So go ahead and answer the question, and then we'll keep going. We'll take one more question after this, and then we'll forward that.
You guys, just to
Quickly.
say, one scenario that Rebecca and I were talking about was, well, maybe if you cap ADUs at 3, if you have more, want to do is cluster bigger than 3, then you're under cottage housing. And
that
so
way
you could
get the
do.
4 of a lot, a single family and 3 ADUs. But if you're going beyond that, then you're into cottage, was an idea.
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Yeah, if you could go back, I'm sorry, to the slide of the question that we're considering.
This will be our last question.
My object permanence is not working very well today, so if it's not on the screen, it's like it doesn't exist. I was looking for exactly what you just said, which is the recommendation of the cap is not there, but, oh, it is?
No, I was saying, yeah, but it was kind of.
Oh, it's
towards
way
the
down
how
here.
ADUs towards maximum units question.
Oh, it's a
We needed
question.
that first,
Right.
yes or no, and then if we are, how many?
Right, so I heard 3 as a possibility. Is that your current staff recommendation for number of ADUs?
I think so. Yes. How's that?
Okay,
Yes.
and if folks want to build beyond that, then you're going to push them towards cottage housing if we were to all agree on this.
Correct.
And the impact, pun intended, would be better towards the city planning-wise and infrastructure-wise because we would be able to collect the maximum amount of impact fees.
Correct.
Right, okay,
And better design.
correct. Then random ADUs sprinkled
Correct.
throughout the acre. So does that make more sense?
Yeah, I'm preparing for the next conversation. So, okay, so keep your comments, write down your questions. We'll forward this to next week, it sounds like, and then city manager has a comment.
we'll put it on next week. If there's any additional information you all want to make that conversation more productive, please send that to me, and we will have it ready.
All right, so committee of the whole is adjourned. We have a couple minutes before the council meeting begins. How are you doing? You need a breath. Seems like you need a breath. I need a breath.
Look, see what I had for tomorrow morning report, and
Oh, my goodness,
jumped in the
Ray.
car and
Exciting.
texted you as I was walking out the door.
Oh, my gosh. Less than a minute. How was that? Okay, let's find our seats, please. We're about ready to begin. Huh? Hey, Bob, we get started at 6 o'clock. Come on. Okay. Ready? The May 1st, 2025 Des Moines City Council study session is now called to order. Happy May Day. Councilmember Nutting will now lead us in the pledge. Please stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To all the public joining us tonight, welcome and thank you for attending. And for those who are watching on Channel 21, thanks for tuning in. Please know, if you're watching online, that we can't attend to our phones during the meeting. However, if you experience technical problems, please email the city clerk at cityclerk@desmoineswa.gov. That's cityclerk@desmoineswa.gov. Is there any correspondence not previously received by council?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. It's now time for comments from the public. Because this is a study session, we'll be hearing comments that address the issues on the agenda only tonight. Other subjects can be heard at our regular meeting, which is, we have one next week. Please keep your comments respectful and recognize that anyone who's speaking or acting in a disorderly manner will be removed from the meeting. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and your city of residence when you come to the podium. First up, we have Patrick Stark.
I believe he left. He was at the council, committee of the whole.
Oh, okay.
I don't see him in here.
All right, so I'm going to cross that off. Is there anyone who came to the meeting tonight expecting or desiring to give public comment and did not realize that you needed to sign in order to do so? All right. So we move right straight in tonight to our discussion items. The first up is our logo discussion. That's a continuation. The purpose of this item is to continue our discussion of a new city logo and offer staff direction as to next steps. And we're going to hear a briefing from Bonnie Wilkins.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and everyone else watching. I'm Bonnie Wilkins, the Director of Administrative Services, and it's logo time. Yay. Do a really quick recap. You've all seen those. So we brought back 4 concepts to council about a month ago, and through the discussion, it came to be that the hybrid concept number 4 and 5 won over the rest with 20 points. Also, in a vote of 6-1, the words "city of" were to be removed, and a vote of 4-3, the words "Washington" was to be removed as well. We were asked to go back to our consultant and have them explore other font options, not similar to Normandy Park, but other ones, and explore the colors of blue, green, and red for the color palette. And there was a sunset option that was brought up, and that was voted 3-4 to not pursue. So with that, came out with 9 different colors and concepts. We were also asked during that time to see how it looked on our printed materials and our city manager report letterhead, and how it also would look on logoware. And so we can toggle back and forth, but that came in through, it's kind of hard to see, but each one of the concepts are up on top, a t-shirt, a hat, and then it's really hard to see, but your packet has it. The PowerPoint had it that you guys got yesterday, and how it laid on the city manager report on the right-hand side there. We can, as we work through the process, we can remove any of these concepts, so we can enlarge them so you can get a better idea of what they look like if you want to have discussion about that. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Also, during the time, we were given a couple of appendixes from other council members. And so here's one option you were presented back in the April meeting from Mayor Buxton. The colors aren't that great here, but they look better on the PowerPoint, just saying. And then here's another appendix as well with some different color options and shadowing. And a third. Again, those are not the best. And another one from another council member with the sunset. And we asked our consultant for the professional recommendation, and they gave us the concept number 1, which is a dark blue, light blue combo with a little bit more block lettering. And the reason they chose that, I can read that all if you'd like, but it's really blue, sets a really good tone for clean, calm, and unique. It's tied to our waterfront heritage, and it differentiates from our neighboring cities, especially Iowa. Their blues are more aesthetic. They're strategic communicators. They evoke calm, trust, stability, and safety, suggest strength and dependability. The light blue adds freshness, openness, and approachability. The palette appeals broadly, cross-generational, modern, but not too trendy, clean but not cold, works across vehicles, signs, digital media, and merchandise. And the color choice is more than preference. It reflects the community's identity, builds emotional connection, and boosts recognition at every touch point. And that really concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions or go back and forth with the slides if you have any wants and wishes to play with it a little bit.
Okay, before we go into discussion, do you have any questions for Bonnie? Okay, thank you. So in order to facilitate the discussion, we have 3 basic color concepts. So what I thought we would do first is pick the color palette and then work the design that we wanted. So what I'm going to ask for, if you've got an opinion, is 1 pitch per person, and then we'll go to a vote. And I think what we'll do is by elimination. So does anybody have a comment that they would like to offer or input that they would like to offer in regard to a palette? Okay, well, I do then. I'm very much in favor of the blue combinations for many of the same things that were mentioned. I had some Google statements, but they matched up with a lot of the statements that have been brought forward. For the reason that it doesn't get confused in a color palette with the other Des Moines. I just like blues, they're classier. And we set out to get a new logo, and this looks much more like a new logo. So those are my comments. Any other offerings before I ask? Okay, Councilmember Nutting.
I agree with you. I like the blues better, and I like concept 1 the best, so
Okay.
that's where I'm at.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and then Councilmember Mahoney.
It ties in well with the blues and brews. Yeah, I just looking at that in comparison, I think I like the blue palette better, but my question is, if we like some of the other designs in the appendix better, we have broader palettes, not just blues, but also some of these incorporate yellows. How are we going, how do we get to there if we want to?
So are you saying, well, we get to there, in other words, you're saying you might be open to other colors if you like another design,
Correct.
trying to organize it.
Yeah, I mean, just for example, on the appendix from Councilmember Oxinger, I really like that center thing right there. That's appealing. I don't know. It's got the blue in it. It's got a nice sun behind it. It's not, I like it better than the gradient down in the lower, what would be the right-hand corner. So it keeps the colors a little more simple. But that's a different palette, if you will.
It is.
You know, but I have, you know, probably have favorites on each page. Could we, it's a process question. How do we get to building the consensus inclusive of the other ones
Okay,
that you
so-
submitted as well? I mean.
All right, so,
You had some nice
so
ones in
we
yellow,
can,
too.
so we can take it for a different approach. We did vote against the sunset concept last time, but if we want to entertain it one more time, we can ask about the sunset again. That would mean including this. If we eliminate that, we go to, all of the rest of the designs are almost exactly the same. They have to do the differences of color and font, pretty much. And maybe shading or 3D effects. So this is the only design that is distinctly different from all the other choices. Is that, so,
No, I mean, the designs on.
oh,
that-
the
that-
round
that
ones,
you
I guess.
submitted, the round ones are very, very different.
That's true, that's true. I didn't think
I'm
those were
just-
gonna be considered again, so.
Oh.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
I have several favorites.
This is becoming a more of a free-flow conversation. Okay. Well, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna open the conversation up to pitch something to me that you like, pitch something to the council, not just to me, to the
Okay.
council, that you want.
Yeah,
And,
I have two favorites that I'm going to
Okay.
pitch to the council. It is on the design concept on the bottom left-hand corner of that one. Of that, I like the font better. I like the lighter or skinnier font. I like the colors. I think it's concept 7. You know, it's the same basic shape as everything else. It's just the combination of colors and font. It's calm, but it's got some strength to it. It's got a little heft to it. And then the other one that I really like is the one I pointed out before, which is on the appendix for the Councilmember Oxinger put together. That does have the sunset in the background with the white boat, and then we get the blue, 2 colors of blue, and a matching lighter font. I don't know if lighter is the right word. So I like both of those concepts.
Which one? The center one?
Yeah, the center one.
All right. Center. All right, next, Councilmember Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we go back up to that one? Thank you. My personal favorite is concept 1. However, when I look at concept 6, the only reason why I entertain those is because of our signage and everything else. We already have those coloration. I know the comment was made that they were saying that it was colored like Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm looking at logos and there's more blue. Maybe the city of Des Moines in one particular has the one shade of burgundy, but not even close. Like I said, a way more blue. So I was confused by their comment by that. And as far as the appendix stuff, I think that's T-shirt stuff. I think we stick with something like this, keep it straightforward and simple, and reflects us. So I'm going to go with concept 1 as my favorite, but I do ask the question to save money, signage, all the things we have on street signs that like concept 3 and 6 and so forth still continue forward, and then that just makes a cost savings over time. And if we start to change the signs and stuff like that, do we confuse people? I know that we do the blue overall for the street signs versus the other cities that do green. So I just have to bring that out there, that I think that might be confusing, and I think over time, changing the signs and changing it to the, what do you do with the blue and so forth in signage, or do you touch it at all? Anyway, it's just something that I think we have to think long range on, and that's what I feel.
All right. Somebody else? Because if the only ideas that are pitched tonight are concept 1, 7, 6, and appendix center. That, it's gonna be hard to take a vote unless that's all we're gonna pitch, so. Any other pitches? Okay, Councilmember Oxiger?
Well, it's not so much a pitch. I can, I think the not emphasizing the green and the blue, which is on the street signs, I would back off of that, allow it to go through because they're already there, but not go forward anything more with those two colors. So back up with so that would bring us back to the blues. I agree with Councilmember Steinmetz that I think the blue combination on 7 is preferable, although I tend to like the heavier font for the words and stuff. The one thing that I did notice on here is that when I pulled the image for the appendix concepts here and stuff, you'll see on the first 3, I used the current city sign thing, and one of the things that the designer did was eliminate the mast, which is, preferable because we're simplifying it even further. So that's what the 2 images on the right are without the mast. Okay.
On which page are you, that you're talking?
We're on the
Can you
appendix.
help us out here for a second?
On the appendix.
On the appendix,
Appendix G.
yeah?
You see there's a
And there
mast
you
in
have
the
a
first
mast
3.
in there. Mhm.
I was using the previous image that we had, but then the
But those 2 over there,
the designer eliminated the mast,
okay?
which I think is preferable. That was a good call. The one thing I would do if we do choose, the combination of 1 and 6, the words, the lettering for 6, or for 1, but the design, the image for 7, off 7. The one thing I would suggest that we do is we back the boat slightly to the left. That's a standard way of indicating motion. You never center it. You never center your image. You back it up a little bit so that it creates energy and makes it look like there's more movement.
Okay, Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. I believe I was one of the folks that advocated for the green and red because of the late Sonics outfits that I remember from right before they left us to that other city that will not be named. But looking at it in comparison to the blues, I think it really looks a little bit dated, like the Sonics uniforms from 1999. And so I'm definitely backing off of the red and green and back to a classic blue. I do believe that, for me, concept 1 is the strongest for 2 reasons. One, I like that the lighter, brighter blue is the water down below rather than the bottom 7 concept where it's one of the sails. And I agree that I think the font should be heavier. I think it's easy to get lost in concept 7 with that really thin font. And so I do believe that concept 1 is the one that is drawing me most in at this moment. I appreciate the other ideas. We had a robust conversation about the sunset when we last spoke about it. But I think that this has won me over as, in the materials that we have here and looking at it on the t-shirt, on the hats, that concept 1 is really drawing me out. Thank you.
Right. Okay, any other input? I'm right now mostly just, I haven't settled on a particular blue sailboat, but I'm definitely in favor of the blue sailboat without the sunset at this point. I'm being won over that way as well. So what I'm wondering, what I would like to do now is vote on the this general, whether we want to go with this general style and then discuss the particulars of it. So without, if we could, all in favor, let's see, how would I say this? All in favor of a blue sailboat motif. No, I move that, thank you. I move that we go forward with a blue sailboat motif with the details to be discussed in a second motion. Second with Councilmember Grace Matsui. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and myself, all opposed and abstain. Councilmember Harris abstains. So now we are narrowed down to the blue sailboat motif. So I think it's down to font, particular colors, color of the water. So if we could, we've got a few people in favor of the thicker font and a couple people maybe the open font. So any input on that? Let's go with the font right now. Any input on the font? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I kind of have a question, because maybe I'm a little colorblind, but is the font of concept one, is that color black?
It's navy, dark navy.
Okay, and concept 4 is clearly blue.
Oh, for the font.
The font, the color of the font, yeah. I just find the black a little off-putting, or the darker, but it's apparently navy blue, and I'm not seeing that difference.
Okay.
Can't say as it's gonna make or break.
I think the paper versions you have in front of you are a more accurate depiction, if that helps.
Okay. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. I actually have a question.
Yes?
Is the blue in concept 1 the same as the header for like our PowerPoints and so forth?
Yes.
Okay, then my only comment to my colleagues is that trying to evaluate color spaces from this kind of thing versus print versus the fetching model with the T-shirt and so on, it's a fool's errand. So it's either lighter or darker, but there's no way to truly evaluate color. So just, my advice would be just look at what you see in our PowerPoints, and that's the blue you're going to get. Thank you.
Okay. So for evaluating font, any other comments? I have one. Somebody? I like the open font. If you probably noticed that that's what Century Gothic I use for all my communications. It's kind of a up and coming. It's like what a lot of people are moving to is the open font. You'll notice a lot of publications online and paper publications have gone to that open sans font. This is a sans font here, meaning no little extra flags on the ends of the letters. But here's a Google quote. So a sense of modernity, openness, and ease, appearing approachable and friendly, characterized by clean lines, simple shapes, and good readability. Especially helpful in diverse environments like websites, mobile apps, and print materials. And I think we also opted for a sans open font for our protocol manual for similar reasons. So I don't have my feet in concrete about the big bold print, but I do like the lighter open sans font. And I also like the navy, though. If whatever we pick, I think the darker, it's classier. The darker you go in any color on a home, in your clothing, or in print or colors, or photos, pictures, dark is classier. So I'm in favor of the light, open font, and dark navy for font.
I'm just unclear. Are you talking about the font in Concept 7?
Concept 7 font in navy. That would be when we're going for font, it would be Concept 7 navy. But I'm not in concrete about it, so if everybody likes it, I'm fine. All right, any other comments or input? Do I have a motion? Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor
Yeah,
Steinmetz.
I'll move concept 7 font in navy.
Concept 7, I'll
No,
second
Concept
it.
7, but
The
making.
font.
Making the font in navy, and I think the big sail should match.
Well,
also
we'll talk
in
sale
navy.
in a minute.
Oh.
This is font only. So, anybody, I'll second it. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Oh, do you have a comment?
So we're, just so I'm clear, concept 7 font in the same colors as the concept 1
Yeah, navy.
and the Waterland in the blue. Is that what we're saying? Is the lighter blue?
I think it's navy. Waterland City is navy also.
No, it's in lighter blue. And concept 1,
On concept 1, so we're pulling.
Oh, I see. You're
Colors of the
pulling the whole concept 1 down below. That's fine. I mean, I like all navy, but I'm fine with that. Okay? Yep. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Just the two of us. So, Councilmember Oxiger, or, excuse me, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz and myself in favor, and Councilmember Harris, are you in favor as well? Councilmember Harris, in favor, opposed? Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Grace Matsui, and Councilmember Mahoney. Okay, do I have another motion about font?
I move to go with concept 1 with the dark navy in Des Moines and the, what I'll call the blue in the Waterland City in the same fonts that they are as shown.
I'll second that.
A second, Councilmember Nutting, any comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and myself, all opposed, abstain. Councilmember Harris abstains. It passes 6-0. So now we got a font, and we have a concept, a sailboat, a blue sailboat concept. So the idea now is going to be picking the sails or picking the texture, I guess you could call it. Okay, so could we look at, so now we have these, we have a font. Let's look at the sailboat. Could we go to, there's at least one, if not two other slides that look at the sailboat concept. That was too modern, so I don't think we picked that. So that is the other one. That's got, yeah, it's got a reflection on the water. Yeah. So that one has a little bit of 3D effects on it, some shadowing that gives it depth, and then there's also a reflection on the water, a slight reflection on the water. So, and darker blue for your second color, which would match the font that we just picked, I think. Okay. So it looks like that's my favorite with the reflection, honestly. So I like the medium blue with the reflection and the navy colors for the boat and the large sail. That's my input. Any other input for choices on colors? Councilmember Oxiger.
Yeah, the only thing is that, you know, you want to be as simple as possible. And when we start adding in the gradations, this isn't much of a problem when you're dealing with web or if you're dealing with some forms of print. But if you're doing web offset or, you know, other forms of print, anytime you have one of those color variations caused by gradation or something, it's another charge. And it can get pretty significant depending upon how you know, extensive the gradation is. So I would say let's just go with the simple and no depth, no
shadow.
Okay. Any other, Councilmember Grace Matsui?
I agree. I think that the ones on the right that have the reflection of the water do look good, possibly on the web or in print paper, but I think if you were to go to embroidery, like the examples that we see in the packet here, it would just look kind of like a blob. It wouldn't really make sense. You can't do a gradient in that way with threading, I don't think, that would make it look as nice as if it was just a clean, with no reflection underneath it. And I wanted some clarification. I didn't, was your motion to just accept concept one with no other discussion, or are these like add-ons to concept one?
My motion, we were talking about the font, and that was
Now we're talking about the
passed.
sailboat.
Now we're talking about the sailboat.
Oh, okay.
If that's.
So we're mostly like gradient, color, basically, yeah, color. I think we have the boat down, so it's mostly color and appearance. Councilmember Harris.
So, since I can't seem to find the proper slot, I would like to move to put back the. I don't recall a clean decision point in removing that, and it's, yeah.
Can we talk about that then, after we decide on the sailboat?
Sure, I
All
just
right.
didn't know what the.
That would be good after the sailboat. I will take that in just a moment. So, input on the sailboat, Councilmember Mahoney.
Can we go back to the 9 concepts? So like, concept 1 is it for me. If I was gonna make a motion, I'd make a motion that way. Whether the boat's a little bit further back or in the center, to me, that doesn't matter. But I think that just simplifies it, it keeps it easy. I like the three variations of blue, kind of covering the extremes from light to dark to what a true blue is. Just keep it that simple.
Councilmember Nutting, and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
I absolutely agree with Councilmember Mahoney. I would second that motion.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I prefer the simplicity of the boats in these concepts here. Concept 1 seems to be working.
Okay, any other input? One more pitch from me. I don't like the light blue. I just like a darker scheme better. So I would like it if we put the small sail to the medium blue, kept a little bit more navy in there. In other words, eliminate the really light blue, but keep it navy and the medium blue that matches the font. Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Back to my lack of imagination. Can we go to a semifinal round and get your proposal next to concept 1? That would be easier for me to be able to look at them side by side and decide then.
Okay.
Say that again, sorry. We want to take her reflective one and put it next to this one, or what?
You just take the curved sail and make it the color of the waterland, that medium blue color. Take the curved sail and make it like the same color that you get, when you get your share button, you get Google and this little button of it. It's like this super common blue color out on the internet, whatever color that is.
Just a comment, that makes it the same color as the bow itself and the water. So it just blends into one.
Well, you make the boat navy and the water stays blue. So in other words.
So then the navy looks like the bow then too. The one big sail looks like the bow, the hull of the boat. And, and then.
Like if you go back.
I think it just blends too much into it. That's my comments.
Okay.
Which one do you want to go to? Sorry, where do you want to go?
Keep going down.
Mouse over here, hold on. It's,
Nope, one more.
you got control? I was going to go back to the slideshow. That's okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, only the water would be, light blue. So the way we did it is the water would be the blue, light blue, and Waterland City would be light blue. Everything else would be navy. Okay. All right. So did you want to bring it back one more time, Councilmember Grace Matsui, and have two options? Would you like to see them?
If that would be okay, it would help me a lot, because this one, I get what you're saying about the sail, but this also has the shadow on it, which I don't like, but, so maybe if we narrowed it down to those two options and only considered those two options, and we got to see them side by side, that would be much easier.
Okay.
Can you confirm what you'd like? You would like concept one alongside of which one of those, please?
Upper right-hand corner.
This one?
But and then when we're gonna put them side by side, it would be with the
same font.
thick font and Waterland City with the blue, but that color blue. And then the water would be that color blue.
That sailboat with the other font, okay.
Now that sailboat with the other font and the light blue water.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're getting there. Okay. Question, Councilmember Oxiger.
I would only ask that this be brought back as soon as possible, because I am in the process of making banners for a lot of events going on this summer, and it would be better to use whatever symbol we come up with rather than, and I mean, this is kind of imminent. We've got,
Like next
both.
week.
I think we still need to talk about Councilmember Harris's request on but once that is done, I would really like to bring it next week, because we're
Yeah.
holding up website design, everything.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that, okay. Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, I just want to restore that's basically it.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I move to restore
Do I have a second? Okay. This motion fails for lack of a second. Thank you for bringing it up, Councilmember Harris. Okay. Yeah, Councilmember Oxiger.
so I also floated the idea of backing the boat up slightly to set it off-center. Is there a problem with that?
Not to us.
It
No.
simply puts energy into the,
Okay,
Into
we
the-
will bring back concept one with the slight moving of the boat.
Backwards.
to the
We're
left.
gonna leave the mayor's as is, or you want that boat moving back too?
That does not matter to me.
Okay, we will have both boats moving back and,
You want the boat off-center
okay.
slightly.
And if we put this on next week's, I'm gonna really hope we move quickly. No pressure.
Okay, thank you for the robust conversation. It's a challenge to get through. Okay, next up, we have our comp plan update with Community Development Director Rebecca Deming. The purpose of this item is to review chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11 of the comprehensive plan. We have a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As we discussed last month, the comp plan is required to have a periodic review every 10 years under the Growth Management Act, or GMA. This deadline was originally required by last December. The Des Moines comp plan includes 11 elements, or 12 chapters when you include the introduction. Last month, we went over the conservation element, Healthy Des Moines element, and the capital facilities element.
and the utilities and public service element. Today, we will be trying to go through 4 of the chapters and their proposed updates. Currently, the schedule is to bring the land use and housing elements in June and the transportation element in July or August. Then we will try and bring the public hearing around August or September. The comp plan is a 20-year high-level policy document intended to articulate our community's goals and objectives. The comprehensive goals, objectives, and policies can't be achieved without implementation measures like regulations, incentives, and programs. The council's role as an approving body of the comprehensive plan is to ensure that it meets the council's vision of the city. Are there any additional goals or policies that should be added to these chapters? And are the existing policies that need to be updated or changed? And remember, this is a high-level visioning document, and any implementations requirements should be in a municipal code update consideration. As staff in this periodic update, we led the public engagement, updated the text, and we're reviewing and making recommendations to the council. The 4 chapters we have tonight are the economic development element, North Central neighborhood element, Marina District element, and the Pacific Ridge element. I will give a brief overview of what each chapter covers, the major changes within each element, and then we can again pull up the red lines and go over any sections or policies the council would like to cover. At the end of each chapter, I'm looking for council's consensus if proceeding with the chapter as presented, or if there are any changes the council would like to see. The economic development element establishes the goals and policies for economic growth and vitality that will enhance the city's branding, marketing, and quality of life. This element describes the Des Moines' economic role locally and identifies appropriate partnerships within the South King County and the Central Puget Sound regional economy. It discusses the importance of economic development to address priorities and needs of the community while accommodating the employment growth targets, which is 2,380 new jobs by the year 2044. This is not the same as an economic development strategic plan. Most of the changes in this element relate to updating background information, adding new information about any strategic advantages or employment data we've had, while adding policies relating to mixed-use transit areas, climate change, and support for small businesses. Happy to go over any areas you'd like to go over within this element.
Okay, do we have any input or questions in regard to this chapter 8? Councilmember Mahoney.
Obviously, I thought it was an excellent job. My question, and it's kind of in the key strategic advantages portion, there's a sentence, a wide range of multifamily retail, lodging, office, and light industrial properties are found along the Pacific Highway South commercial zone, presenting ideal choices of business and in the businesses downtown. And it seems to me, and I think you cover it a little bit later, but should there be some kind of desire for mixed-use properties or something like that in the language? I know it's in a few spots otherwise, but it just seemed to me that I think the reality of this day and age is a lot of properties that are going to get developed, whether they're on Pac Highway or they're going to be downtown or pretty much anywhere in those like commercial-ish type zones, mixed use is going to be the best formula. The big box stores, the car dealerships, and those things are going to be far and few between in the directions. Coming from a retail background and stuff, I could tell you that like in Nordstrom, where we're developing new stores, they're being developed in malls that include mixed uses. They have apartments, condominiums, various, it creates events. And even though these might be a lot smaller scale, than anything like that. That's where I see the direction going when I ride the light rail or I'm going downtown or so forth. So I just thought it missed a little bit of language that covered that, yes, all of the components are listed, but putting them together, I didn't feel was done, and that was kind of my call out on the whole document for that matter. I thought that was kind of the missing message. Anyway, that's what I had.
Any other questions or input on this chapter? I do have a question. So I have a couple things in regard to the grid. So but you're in the background and context. So if I've got input on the grid items, do you want that now?
Yeah, they're all within here, so.
They're all, okay. So you talk about the second paragraph or the second grid line under economic development. It talks about, and include an economic element to the previous comprehensive plan update. Local governments also prepare other types. I would put to the previous comprehensive plan update and strategic action plans there. So Des Moines recognizes that good growth management planning should factor in economic considerations and include an economic element to the previous comprehensive plan update and strategic action plans. And then it begins with local governments also. Okay. Then down under ED 111, you talk about the city can leverage land use entitlements. Could you clarify what that means?
It's generally planning approvals.
Okay. Then in ED 181, where's the star? Develop a multimodal transportation plan that prioritizes pedestrian-friendly streetscapes. To the end, prioritizing improvements that link the marina, that link regional transit downtown and the marina. So right there, just insert that link regional transit right there. Okay. It says, a little bit further down, it says, segment 1B of the project focusing on 216th Street remains to be completed and is included in the city's transportation improvement plan. Clarify, what is segment 1B?
I think,
It's right under ED 111, then the next cell underneath that, it's, excuse me, that's North Central Neighborhood, never mind. You're gonna move to that next. Okay, so then a couple general questions. The UW Students Projects Plan that was mentioned, is that available if one of us want to see that?
I haven't had a chance to research how easily accessible they are. I found that in some of the notes and research.
Okay.
I'm sure they are available. I just don't know how easily and how fast I'd be able to find them.
Then I would say it was interesting, but I wouldn't say don't put, you've got a lot on your plate. So it's not that interesting. Then providing 3,800 units and 2860 new jobs. What's the base year? Is it
2019?
2019, yes. So, okay. That is not what I thought. And then why only 3 neighborhoods addressed? Is it going to be more? Or are we only, for economic development elements, are only going to pick 3 neighborhoods to focus on?
So those are the ones that are in our current comprehensive plan. So those were the only ones that were budgeted and are part of our 10-year periodic update. If the council would like to add some in the future, it's definitely something staff could look at. I just don't have the capacity or the budget to do them now.
Okay, no worries. That's all I have for now. Thank you. Any other, doesn't look like any other input or questions. It looks like we can move to the next segment.
So, any other questions, and do we have a consensus with the changes proposed across the board? Yes?
Regarding that chapter.
In that chapter, for economic development. Okay. Okay, the North Central neighborhood is Des Moines' primary location dedicated for office, research development, manufacturing, distribution, and large-scale industrial development. Changes to this element relate to updating background information and adding new information about transit investments and goals, policies, and implementation strategies for the Innovation District overlay. Start with answering your question about the segment 1B.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So segment 1B is South 126th Street from Pack Highway to the east city limits. And at that
126th?
Yes, South 126th Street. 216th, sorry.
Oh, good.
216th.
That's white.
And that improvement project includes widening and providing additional travel lanes where feasible, bike lanes, curb, gutter, sidewalk, landscape strip, decorative street lighting, and undergrounding of utilities.
All right. Thank you. Oh, are you wanting questions?
Yes,
You're all
we're
done
on
with
to
that
the-
whole section. Okay.
No, yeah, so if you have other questions in this,
Oh, wow.
in this
thank you. That
section.
was so short. I just really thought there would be more. Okay. Questions, Councilmember Harris, and then Councilmember Mahoney, and then Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
So I'm just going to keep repeating the same thing, and I'm so sorry, but,
No, that's okay.
you know, I voted on the thing, and when it was originally proposed, the pretensions were, you know, the models that were being compared were ambitious, is a word that comes to mind, and I am struggling to see a use case that differentiates this from either the business park per se, you know, light industry, or without being somewhat disparaging, but I just keep coming back to some sort of 5/1, 5/2 kind of a scenario, or so I'm being rhetorical here, but, you know, are there any kind of models that, not for this, but just in general, to give a sense of what would make that a unique value proposition?
So I haven't had any applications come across for the Innovation District to really analyze the original intent. When you asked the question, I started doing a little more research and trying to watch the original video of the council. I hadn't been able to get through it, really.
I'm not even trying to, I'm just trying to think of it in terms of actually like stop signs. In other words, if we got a proposal that conformed to something, there are a lot of good things happening at the business park right, you know, next to the post office. Those look like wonderful things to me. And so I just want to make sure that we're not actually limiting ourselves, you know, holding out for something more wonderful.
So the only thing in the code under the Innovation District is there is a performance standard in there that basically saying there should be distinct physical characteristics, and looking at providing small business development, entrepreneurship support systems, looking at increased opportunities for small business development. It doesn't look like any of it has real strong language that prevents, that puts real limiting factors on it. It looks like most of it is, you know, should or shall, but not, or not shall, but shoulds, and promotes and increase opportunities. There's none of the language I'm seeing has.
I really am trying to take the concepts.
I understand.
You know, I mean, not just as this grand aspirational deal, and if there actually is a use case that somewhere in, some other thing that's commensurate with that geometry, I mean, I'm down. I just.
Yeah, the reason that's in here is because it's something you guys adopted and promoted, and so we're pushing it through your guys' goals and policies into the comprehensive plan. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Right, Councilmember Mahoney.
One thing, and I think it was mentioned a little bit in an email or something, I think all of the chapters, particularly the neighborhoods, a map in the picture, just, obviously I went back to like your introduction, you got a great map there. It's like just showing that section, because obviously that's what we should be talking about, is that actual neighborhood.
yeah,
And so forth. I just thought that was a call out that I think visually makes it a little bit easier. I really didn't have any other issues other than that. I thought, obviously this neighborhood in particular is designed for our business park and what's gonna go forward there. And I think it's well established with a few updates coming hopefully soon. So I thought you covered the context of what that neighborhood's meant for. I just, like I said, for somebody that's reading it, that maybe getting it addressed for the first time, I had to read the address or your cross streets and so forth, just to like kind of mentally, and then look at a map. I had to go back to the map to see exactly, well, what are we exactly talking about? And I just thought that would help. That's all I had.
we can definitely add a map to the chapter.
Yeah, every neighborhood chapter.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I would echo the map piece would be nice, just to get a little better focus. On the box here, I don't see anything in here that's limiting opportunities elsewhere if somebody else wanted it. Is that is the case, isn't it? It's just, we're focusing on this particular neighborhood, correct?
Correct.
All right, and my understanding and the way it reads to me, and I want to make sure this is correct, is that this is trying to address smaller scale businesses with, entrepreneurialism, and that anybody can sort of jump into this area and try to make it work, as opposed to having to purchase or rent a larger scale business. That's what we're trying to create here. Is that a correct understanding? That's how I recall it, but I don't know.
I was having a hard time again, I had a very short period of time to try and research this innovation district and the original history and reason behind it. There's a whole marketing study for the whole area, so I don't have a good answer for the original reason behind it yet. All I had was what the code that was actually adopted, which just talked about a greater efficiency in land uses, was the reason behind it, and looking at better alternatives for transportation. So it sounded like maybe it's something, combination, startups, that kind of thing, trying to put multiple types together, make it easier for smaller businesses to work together.
I mean, it may help, I don't know, but it's sort of the incubation idea, or the
I think that was the word, incubation, incubators, yes.
Is what was intended in that
Yeah.
area, which means, starting small, and something can grow, and it would outgrow this particular district.
Yes.
Maybe it moves across the street, or not, but, now, where the word incubation would go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And, but I think that word needs to be in there to make it more clearly understand what the purpose of this, innovation district is. I think that's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I think we are seeing some of that language here in NCN 1.13 on page 3. It talks about technology-driven incubators. So that language is already involved here. When we're talking about innovation district, and I'm going to pull this card out because it's still within the 18 months because I am new here. But I believe we only have the one. Is that correct? one innovation district. So we're talking about, but it's plural, encouraging more than one that we have. Is that what we're talking about? As we approved one in 2023, and, but we're talking in the NCN 2.1 as if there might be more, or we might be adding more?
I don't think that's the intent. So
Okay.
remove the S.
Great, thank you.
Good catch. Was that everything? Any other input on this particular one from anybody else on the dais here? Okay, I do have a couple. Considering part of the underlying reason in the even innovation districts in general, there's a high reliance on partnerships like academia, business, industry. And so part of it was talking about a partnership with Highline College even. I think that they were part of the research in creating overlays. So I wanted to add, if we could, there is one place where it talks about education and training, kind of like a workforce pipeline idea, but this is more in regard to tech, but still, you know, we've got this training facility going in up on the highway, so similar. So if we could add in the second cell down under North Central Neighborhood, in the middle of that paragraph, it says, the district can provide myriad benefits, such as providing enhanced opportunities to develop workforce housing. I'd like to put education and training in proximity, workforce housing, comma, education, comma, and training in proximity to jobs, transit, recreation, and open to blah, blah, blah. So just adding education and training there. And then also, it's in a cell 2.1.1, but also if you could add it to 1.1.3, in the last sentence, it says, employment hub by encouraging projects that integrate workforce housing, comma, education, comma, and training. Or education and training, comma, however you want to put that in that long line there. So I just think that that's a really key part of what an innovation district is all about, is the education and training. That's all I have. Is everybody agreeable to that? I guess that's your question, right? Too, is everybody agreeable to those things? Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay. Next step, I think, is the Marina District, yes?
The Marina District neighborhood encompasses the downtown central business district, Marina, and Beach Park. It is the historic and cultural center for Des Moines. The neighborhood is developed with a variety of land uses, including commercial, professional offices, single-family, multifamily, mixed use, and recreational uses. The current vision, goals, policies, and implementation strategies were the outgrowth of several planning efforts between 2009 to 2014. The proposed amendments focus on updating information to reflect recent capital investments and new policies relating to local businesses and art and wayfinding. Ready to take any recommendations?
Councilmember Mahoney?
So, in section 3 of that, there were two bullet points that I wasn't sure why they're there, because I think they would go to the Redondo neighborhood. The city rebuilt the Redondo boardwalk in the following the destructive storm in late 2014. And I just didn't see that being relevant to this neighborhood. And then the boarding float upgrades at the Redondo boat ramp. And maybe there's a reason, but I didn't see the logic in those.
Okay.
Because, you know, like I said, if this was the Redondo neighborhood, I think they would fit perfectly. I did see this is where on the econ one you gave us, you used mixed use, tier, and varied housing, and you did some descriptions, which I thought it was kind of what I was looking for in the other one. So I thought some examples here. I like and you do this throughout the document, the words comma as feasible, which gives it a voice of reason. So definitely thought that was a great addition that you did, because I think that's, it gives us it gives whatever future councils and so forth the flexibility when it doesn't make reason, when somebody could say, well, you said this. But yeah, it was really just those Redondo comments. I just didn't think they fit in. And that was my comments.
Any other comments or questions or input? Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, on section 2.8.2, required offsite parking standards at the time the use are authorized. It doesn't seem to fit as with everything else that's talking about economic development. So off-street parking standards, is that residential? Is it business off-street? That's where my disclarity is. And
I think it's saying that, make sure that uses meet parking standards within our code. That's all it's saying. So when new uses are proposed, they need to meet the standards of parking within the municipal code.
so residential
Or commercial. Whatever the council adopts within the municipal code for parking requirements, we need to require new uses to meet those standards.
Now, okay, I guess how is that part of economic development then, in the Marina District? Parking's already a little impacted, so.
I think it's just to ensure sufficient parking for businesses, I think is more a business economic development thing.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Grace Matsui and then Councilmember Nutting.
I want to make sure I'm following along, because 2.8.2 is under transportation, not under economic development, is that correct? The heading under.
It should, yeah, I think possibly needs to be in and not bolded. It looks like it's, the formatting's
Right,
off.
but it's under the heading. What heading is it under?
It should be under ensure that off-street parking regulations reflect anticipated future demand.
I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear. If you scroll up, it's not
Oh.
underneath the heading of economic development, it's underneath transportation, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so it doesn't fit under economic.
I didn't catch.
You are
That's
correct.
okay. That's okay, and it's hard in the. Sorry, I'm speaking without the mic on. Sorry about that. And it's hard to read. I love red line, but it doesn't always jive with my brain. So sometimes it's helpful to read it out with the way that it would if you get rid of the things that are struck. So require new uses meet the required off-site parking standard at the time the uses are authorized, which I think is actually very important given that there's massive changes to parking regulations that just passed in this legislative session for both commercial and residential.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Nutting.
I'm good. My clarifications have been made.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. This is just, another sort of a guidance thing, but MD 1.1.2, develop standards allowing light manufacturing, and I'm just wondering what that might look like, and if not today, just because in my mind, I can think of it being amenities that are useful for boat owners, for fishing, for that sort of thing. But I'm just sort of trying to keep a use case. And in MD 2.2,
I'm sorry, it just crashed and I had lost connection.
oh, I'm sorry.
I just regained connection. What did you want changed?
I don't have a change. I'm just trying to, if at some point the city has some kind of thinking about what, you'll hear me over and over again, like, I need an example.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, I need something, and my only example is like Shill Shoal and Rays and fisherman supply, just basically what boat owners and fishermen and people, you know, since it's theoretically, I mean, it's a working marina. And
Right.
what kind of establishments not only would be useful to boat owners, but essentially would promote the vibe. Okay, I mean, because apart from any of the actual retail that the tackle shops and antique tchotchke places still have there, they contribute to, they provide this thing that encourages other little restaurants and people walking and just, you know, oh, it's a sextant, you know. So, you know, maybe that may be by the by. The other thing, and I wish I had some language, but I am frankly concerned about the building height MD 2.2. And I know that this is, you know, probably going to raise pulses, but the concept, I fully appreciate the terracing and modulation. I'm glad that you've struck require. But does this, I would hate to imply that the status quo in terms of views and stuff would drive the entire discussion for the next 10 years. And I don't know how to soften that and make people feel, you know, existing people feel comfortable, but if there was a way to, you just want to create more flexibility because people who do come in, they're going to ask for it anyway. So, yeah, and I guess I'm done being rhetorical.
Yeah, I'm not concerned that this would prevent a change in building height. This is, the way this is worded, the way I would read it, is that this is trying to create pedestrian-friendly environment at the street level. This is saying you want to make sure that when someone's walking, that you're creating a street-friendly environment, that you're wanting, you know, that's why you're creating terracing and modulation, that at the street level, you're creating a friendly environment. Not that at the top, it can't be higher, but at the street level, you're creating a walkable, friendly situation.
To that end, Rebecca, hearing that, I think we could reword the bold on MD 2.2 to better reflect what you just said.
Yeah.
The council agrees, because I see Councilmember Harris's point on the height, and that's you know, that area has a lot of sensitivity to that. So we might be boxing ourselves in to leave that.
I mean, both of these are talking about pedestrian scales, so we could look at rewording something.
And I appreciate that. I understand their competing interests, but, you know, you have this, you do have these competing tensions between destination and providing business and tourism and so forth, and also, you know, I like the word modulation, that, yeah, just thank you for your consideration. Cheers.
Okay, any other questions or input from the up here? So I had one question. I was working off of the grid that we were given, and so I did not go back through and look specifically, but I did have one policy add, and you might have it in there, and I didn't notice it. So in regard to, I would have just called it MD 283, but you probably have. This is, and it refers back to ED 1.8.2, which says, fund projects that maintain and upgrade public spaces, parks, and recreational facilities, economic centers. Let me look how this, my screen isn't big enough. Anyway, referring back to ED 1.8.2, creating an element that says the same thing about the marina. So it starts with fund projects that. So I would say fund projects that invite community gathering and business opportunities as well as tourism through similar things up in ED, through multimodal accessibility, walkability, and public amenities. But now I'm looking at right there, like, encourage new development to include, I would just like it to begin with fund projects that, just like in ED 1.8.2. So I'm basically taking ED 1.8.2 and modifying a little to make it apply to the Marina District.
ED 1.8.
Yeah, it's on like page 59 or. It says, fund projects that maintain and upgrade public spaces, parks, and recreational facilities within existing economic centers as feasible. Prioritize infrastructure investments that enhance walkability, public amenities, and multimodal connectivity. So what I did is I kind of took that and put it under MD and opening with the same thing, fund projects that.
And so how do you want to change it for the Marina District? I apologize.
There isn't a change, it's an add.
So you just want to add exactly like that in this section?
Fund projects that, a little shorter. Fund projects that invite community gathering and business opportunities.
Yep.
As well as tourism.
Yep.
Through multimodal accessibility, walkability, and public amenities. It's kind of a shortened version of 1.8.2. I saw Councilmember Grace Matsui with her hand raised. Okay. Councilmember Harris.
I actually have some language, and I feel very good about myself. MD 2.7.
Okay.
So where it says includes a comprehensive parking strategy, comma, pedestrian and bicycle network. Before that comma, bicycle network connecting Barnes Creek Trail and Des Moines Creek Trail bicycle network systems. And then have the comma. And I'm asking for that because, you know, a lot of this is high level, but it has been the case that when we did the marina redevelopment going back to 2016, there really was a notion to have connectivity from Highline College into the marina and then taking you out through the beach park, Des Moines Creek Trail, Lake to Sound Trail, and so on. I mean, that's always been the dream. And I have never seen a map that actually showed a little, you know, red dotted thing that says, here's how you get your bike from this thing across Kent Des Moines Road, you know, down. And I just like that sentence in there or that clause in there because at some point we got to figure out a place to put it.
And so you're saying 2.7.1 next to bicycle network?
2.7 pedestrian and bicycle network connecting the Barnes Creek 2.7 point, I'm sorry, I can't see that, but yeah, bicycle network connecting Barnes Creek Trail bicycle system, whatever we're calling it officially, the marina and Des Moines Creek Trail. I trust you to turn that into a linguistically correct clause, and then the rest of the sentence is great.
Councilmember Harris, would you be satisfied with making a little bit more generic, just connecting our either regional trails or city trails so that it doesn't get relegated just to those two trails, that if there are more trails implemented in the next 10 years, that there's a bicycle network that just connects our trail network?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the Marina District, and to me, strategically, that's the connectivity. I mean, at some point, you have to connect the Barnes Creek.
We can put including but not limited to.
you know, but I mean, that's the goal, is to get people from one segment into the marina and then, you know, out to the Des Moines Creek Trail. So, thank you.
All right. Looking up the line. Any more comments or questions? Do you have anything, it looks like, is there?
General consensus on all these changes?
Okay, looks like it. Okay. All right. And that's all you guys have for us?
Yes. So this element was the outgrowth of the Pacific Ridge Neighborhood Improvement Plan and the SEPA planned action that was completed in 2000-2001. The city envisioned a complete transformation of this neighborhood into a vibrant urban village that could accommodate much of the city's future job and housing growth. There are no major changes, only updating background information. I didn't even plan to pull this one up unless you guys really needed it. So are there any questions, concerns, or changes you needed within this element?
Councilmember Harris.
Again, it's somewhat rhetorical, but Midway Park is lovely, but 30th Avenue is mighty long. And I would just ask the city if there is some future research or something that would consider some kind of play space or something. Because it's big, and there are a lot of families. And that's it.
Councilmember Mahoney.
The thing about Pack Ridge is a lot of the areas, from what I understand, like multifamily housing, you can go up pretty high. I mean, it's not limited to 5 or 7 stories. I've heard 20. And I could see that we want to encourage that, where there might be opportunities for additional park and stuff like that as part of in lieu fees and stuff like that, impact fees, some of those kind of things. But I think leaving it open to potential of that nature is more important than trying to pigeonhole us to a park. I mean, there's a big one there, and yes, it's more on the northern part of that whole parcel or neighborhood, but it is big and is numerous, and there is, like I said, the partnership with PSE to expand it and even offer a little bit more is great. But I wouldn't want to limit us there, because I think there's great potential for revenue for great affordable housing along with potential revenue generators. So I don't want to take anything away from that, and I don't want to pigeonhole us into it. I don't think it's one of those things that, you know, situated between Pack Highway and 99 and so forth and the light rail, that there's other opportunities there that could be of greater use and serve more people. So I thought you did a good job. It left it a little bit vacant in that regard, and that's what I believe it needs to stay.
Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Well, I'm seeking some clarification, because I think you're talking about, Councilmember Harris, the Parks and Open Space PR1 and the new 1.2, so 1.12. So the first, which is 1.121, ooh, fun times, is about Midway Park and extending it. But the next bullet point talks about adding additional resources, which could include along 30th Avenue. It doesn't say only focus on Midway. So I think that the language is there in the second bullet point down in aligning city outside resources to expand recreational activities and not just limited to Midway. Does that seem to cover your concern?
Yeah, I guess it's just, you know, there's the letter of the document, and then there is the will and the focus. And what I have noticed in all my time here is that we just tend to focus on adding more to existing stuff. And I see young mas with, you know, and they're pushing the pram, and you head north on 30th, and man, that's a schlep. I'm just saying, you know, you live near It's just, it's a schlep. And I'm just asking to think in terms of gravity. There's nothing wrong with this language. It's just next time you visit Midway, just head south on 30th and just, you know, yeah, see what a schlep it is if you're having that brem. Thank you.
I do have a question kind of tied onto that. Do we have code that requires a certain amount of open space or playground space in a development of a certain size? So if you have put in multifamily housing, or if you put in a development after a certain size, kind of like a, what's that called? And that neighbor, Westwood Park or whatever, up on 192nd. There's a park up there that it was required to put in because they put in a housing development. Is there like a limitation where it's required?
And there is the multifamily.
But does Packard have different standards than the rest?
No.
Okay. Yes, we do have, I was trying to see if this section had different standards than the rest. Yeah, we do have a standard for play space specifically within our open space. So we both have an open space standard that multifamily has to meet, and then within that open space, we have play space requirements. There are different variances, like if you're near transit and other requirements. So if you're senior living, obviously you're gonna not have, you're gonna wanna get out of having specific play space. But there are standards within our code for specifically play spaces within that open space requirement as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, no more questions? Gosh, it looks like we're good. You guys have all the direction and input you wanted? Okay.
So the last thing was just to go again, if there was any other feedback on these chapters, if you're happy with the way we presented it and everything, and if there was any changes you needed for the next round. If not, we'll be happy to see you next month.
I loved it. I loved it I loved that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, you may think that this is the end of the meeting, but I have a proposal for you. Bonnie has the logos ready. If we would like to take, she is magical. Where's your cape, girl? So if you guys would be willing to continue on our conversation for a few more minutes and take a look at this comparative logos, are you open for that? All right, a new agenda item.
So excited. No judging my artwork.
Yeah, as Bonnie pulls it up, and she, is amazing and deserves a cape, but we'll of course turn over whatever the final choice is to the graphic designer to make it like perfect.
Absolutely, yes. This is just a really quick
Yeah.
imagery. Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
All right, so let's,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so we have a couple of elements to take a look at. One is the off-center idea of the boat, off-center, giving it some direction, whether we like that or not. And then we also have the style of boat that we want. So, or the color, I think it's just really the color of the leftover sail. So let's take the water first. Anybody want to offer any further comment on the positioning of the boat? I'll take Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Nunning, and then Deputy Mayor.
Close, good job, but a little bit too much. It's just, you just want it slightly off-center. So, go about half the distance than what you did here. Does that make sense? Okay?
Yeah.
You simply wanted your eye to see that it's not in the center.
Okay, was it Councilmember Nunning next? Yes.
Yeah, I had my mic off when I said it. Because of my ADHD and my perfectionism, I can't vote on this portion of it. It drives me nuts. So It needs to be said.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, actually, I get it. I had to see it to really understand it. I get why moving the boat in one direction a little bit. If you think it not perfect, that's okay. But I get why it's off center, and I like that. So.
All right, so I'm a little bit with Councilmember Nutting. I just love symmetry. And I think that the curvature of the water was intended to give direction to it. So I'm with Councilmember Nutting. So we'll vote, so if somebody takes a motion, we'll find out what goes. Go ahead, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Mahoney.
I move to approve the top left logo and design as shown as the official logo of the city of Des Moines, Washington.
Second.
Discussion. Well, we were just gonna be talking about the water first because, well, honestly, okay, well, I'll just say, I really don't like the light blue. So I won't be voting in favor of that. And, but I might lose. So, all right, anybody else? I like the meeting.
I'll support that if it gets this over with.
Okay, so, and no other comments, so the upper left-hand corner is the one that's the motion and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Raise your right hand. Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Grace Matsui, Councilmember Mahoney, all opposed. Councilmember Oxiger, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, and myself. Upper left hand carries. That is our new logo.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, yes. Okay, all right. Well, that brings our meeting to a close. Our next meeting date is May 8th. It will be a city council regular business meeting. Please remember to pick up after yourself. We've got lots of snacks up here tonight. Councilmember Nutting, would you like to take a motion?
I move that we adjourn. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and seconded, all in favor? 7-0. We're adjourned.
Wow. Two right around 7:30.
Yeah.